Now, the final set of issues that you have to be monitoring in dealing with the perceptual triggering mechanism of another human being are the postural issues. Monitoring what's going on in the person's posture that you're dealing with is critical. The most obvious one is he standing straight? Does he have an erect posture, in which case he's a much more dangerous person? Or is he bent over? Do you have some form of postural distortion, of bending? Stand on up. This kind of bending, this kind of bending. Is he talked over to the left or to the right? Do we have him in a position in which his posture is already inhibited? So if he's already locked back some in relation to you, you need to be aware of that, because his positions that he can go to from this bad posture are fairly limited. Same thing when he's locked forward. His positions and what's coming next is a fairly limited, narrow range. If he's standing upright in good posture, he's not challenged by gravity, and his potential positions next really chaotic. Don't know at all what's going to happen to him. So the broad thing of just being bent or straight. The next issue in terms of posture has to do with what's going on in levels of the arms. Is he gripping and pulling, in which case he's going to be bending his elbow? Or is he pushing, in which his elbow and his body is going to get into a straight line? So we're monitoring, is the arm bent? Is the arm getting straight? And just like the body posture, if he's bent over or he's getting straight, if the arm is bending, then we can predict that either knocks him down or what's coming next is going to be a straight arm. And so we can make a prediction. Either this goes into a conclusion where he can't stand up anymore, or it's going to get bent again. So every time you're going from one extreme in a posture and you hang out in that extreme, you can predict. You can start reading and predicting what's about to come. Very similarly, what's going on in terms of opening and closing. And this is for all the joints in the body. Is his hand closing down? Is his walkie closing down? Is his elbow closing down? Is his hip closing down? Is he turning in on the hip? Closing and opening of each joint and each function in the body becomes a critical element, because that's how we coil and store energy on one another. We close the hip, we open the hip. We close the hand, we open the hand. And monitoring exactly what the condition is in all these relationships becomes a really critical factor. The gripping function is just a specialized form. Gripping and relaxing is just a specialized and central form in terms of the opening and closing of the body that you're trying to pay attention to. But it's one that you do have to be really aware of. As you come into contact with the man, you need to not only be aware of whether you are being gripped or gripping, or whether your own body, whether you have locked your fingers down or not. Because as you get a hold of him, you can have this open palm that's affecting him, and that will give you a whole different set of applications than as you lock down and you put the little grip in it right here. So what that brings into play when you start thinking about gripping and relaxing, you're not only interested in his gripping and relaxing, you're very interested in your own gripping and relaxing. You're very interested in your own elbows bending in and out, your own postural elements too. And this is really true for the entire set of ideas in terms of the perceptual triggers. Up till now, the relational stuff, the directional stuff, the postural stuff, and positional stuff, the first three, the positional, directional, relational, it's more about reading him. Once you get to posture, you really got to be a lot more interested, positional as well, a lot more interested in both. Very interested in what's going on in terms of his body and your body as you make distance and you make closure and you make this connection. The last one, very simple. Are we going to the right? Are we going to the left? What is the general postural issues of vectoring that's happening from the torsions in the body? So we talked earlier about closing the walkie or twisting the hips or what have you. Yeah, it'll give you a sense, and it's largely a felt sense. This is less something you're monitoring with your eyes and more just a felt sense in the body. You can feel he's tracking over to my right side. We get to a certain point, he doesn't like me crawling up his back, so we're going to go to the left side. It becomes a predictable element. Just like the elbow bending and opening, if we hold him in a postural problem on one side for a while, eventually he'll want to get to the other side. And if we're ready for it, that's fine and dandy by us. So all these little elements of perception that we're training have to work together in a subconscious reflex activity, monitoring all those things in him and all those things in ourselves in order to basically navigate through chaos. Now, that can be really overwhelming, and that's why I've laid them all out in a one-by-one piece so that you can go through your own game and notice. Just tune in, maybe one element per night, and just notice, am I really tracking on the right and the left? Am I really tracking on the opening and closing? Am I really tracking on gripping and letting go? Am I really tuning in to these elements as sharply as I might be? Because over time, we can build an entire game with big blind spots. And that is a treacherous deal in the martial arts. To have a good map, we have to make sure that we have all the major areas that we might be venturing through written on that map. Otherwise, it's a defective map. Otherwise, you just go to some areas and say, well, we don't know what's happening there. We're just lost. We're just wandering around. We'll find out when we get there. Well, that's interesting, but if your training is thorough and comprehensive, you hope that you've been through that region or that territory a few times, and you hope that you've had your eyes open enough to notice what the elements going on in that territory are. We can't be absolutely prepared. That's impossible. There's always going to be surprise. There's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be stuff that's going to happen that will invoke chaos, that will take us by surprise. There's always a sucker punch around a corner that you don't see coming. It will always happen. There's no way to stop that. All you can really do is build as broad a map, as careful as you can, and stay prepared within that wide range of triggers. And when the triggers happen, you make sure your mechanisms for exploiting them as they happen are as sharp as they can be. So I hope this helps, and if you have questions about it, feel free to give me a call or drop me an email. I'd be happy to help you out. Thank you.